So we have 3 new members who are joining us today. I'm going to have you come up here because we have a gift for you. Portia Barney, Charlotte Starks, who's with our little one, so we'll celebrate her in a little bit, and Dr. Janine Dietrich. Dr. J, we're going to go down here, honey. I know how you love this stage. I did say go roll. So these Charlotte, you are here. Oh, I thought I said go in with the little ones. Thank you. So these lovely, powerful, and amazing women have all chosen to make this spiritual community their home. And by doing so, it's really an inner commitment to your own spiritual growth, your own awareness, and a commitment to the rest of the community. They've agreed to the covenants, which say basically we'll pray, we'll be kind, we'll give, we'll serve. It's a beautiful thing. So we have gifts for you. We're so grateful that you're here and a part of this community. I invite you, if you've not met these women, each one of them is a powerhouse in their own right. And so we're grateful you're part of our community. Yeah. So we are in the final throes of thriving. No, we're not. We're just beginning to thrive. This is the last of a series. And so as you know, we've looked at this idea of the acronym around Thrive being I am thankful, I am happy, I am resilient, I am inspired, I am vivacious. My favorite word. Try it. I am vivacious. See, it works. I'm just telling you. It's hard to not be vivacious when you're saying vivacious. Today, I want to look at an idea around that I am enthusiastic. And I'll tell you why this is one of my favorites. You see, enthusiasm is a quality of being. And so often what happens is people confuse enthusiasm for excitement. Now, one can be enthused and not be excited. One can be excited and not be enthused. So we're going to look at that a little bit today. What does it mean? To me, I'm always, as you know, I like words and I like the origins and where they come from. Excitement, if you remember your junior high English class, the prefix, basically means from or outside of, coming to. So when we're excited, very often it's something that's external to us, and we get excited about it. We're excited at games. We'll be excited at the competition today. We'll be excited about things. But sometimes it's hard to sustain excitement. Again, you need to keep being stimulated. Enthusiasm, however, the prefix is in. Guess where that comes from? In. Brilliant. You know it's simple if Shane gets it, right? Oh! He knows I love him, right? Enthusiasm. So in, theos, it comes from the divine. So literally it means to be in the divine. Coming from or the God, being within God, being the divine within us. That even in some of the old translations, it meant sort of that the gods have blessed us. So when we're in that state of being, of recognizing our oneness with this divine presence, we're living from an awareness that all things are possible because we are part of the one. Now, we're not trying to overcome something. We're not trying to do something different. We're simply recognizing that it is in this presence that we live and move and have our being. Khalil Gibran, in his wonderful book, The Prophet, there's a quote I often use in weddings, and it says, "You should not say when you are loving that God is in my heart, but rather I am in the heart of God." And I love that because when I feel enthused, when I feel like I am the heartbeat of the divine, radiating its life into being, I'm not only excited, I am enthused about being a part of this one. And it begins to expand my capacity for what is possible. You see, what enthusiasm does for us is it is a passion That we are throwing ourselves into relationship with our goal, a dream, or an activity. You see, we're throwing ourselves into relationship with this thing. I used to teach a course that was based upon the idea that there's two ways we approach life. One is we set a goal, we have a vision, and we accomplish it. Okay? Wow, I know. As evidence, you're here. You made a decision at some point to say, I'm going to go to the Center for Spiritual Living and look. Yeah, give yourselves a pat on the back. Now, I know you guys don't do this, but here's what sometimes I have done in my life. I have set a goal and not done it. Right? I know, bad me. So what's the difference? And what I began to realize teaching this was that there's a fundamentally different thing that happens when we are in relationship with the thing, with the goal, with the vision that we hold, right? That it's ours. Doesn't matter what the obstacles are. Every one of us could tell and share a story of where you did something that didn't make sense from an outer level, that there was not all the right circumstances conspiring to allow you to have what you had, but you made that commitment, you made that decision, you set that goal, and boom, you did it. Likewise, I'm just going to go out on a limb here to suggest that maybe some of you have had times when you've set that goal and you didn't accomplish it. And what we begin to realize is that the difference is not the obstacles and things that happened. Because if you take the one instance where you've taken the idea, the goal, set the goal, and accomplished it, there were obstacles. You were busy. You still had all the same challenges in your life. But in the instances where we've taken the goal and not accomplished it, what we begin to say is that it was about the obstacles. We call those stories or excuses or reasons or other things, right? So the difference is really about being in that right relationship with the thing, with owning it. This is mine. We move into that awareness that what it takes, whatever it takes, I will create this, I will manifest this, I will bring it forward. And so enthusiasm is that quality that just says, I'm going to cast aside all the worries. I'm going to cast aside all the distractions. I'm going to embrace the delights of the moment and be in that place of hope and success that I don't know. Very often when we set those high goals, when we have that big dream, thank you for that beautiful song. You are fabulous. You got to come more often, girl. We set that big dream. You see, the wonderful God-given talent that we all have is we have a mind. And that mind is creative. And that mind can literally create what wasn't before. It's where all innovation, all invention comes from, is from an idea. And when we can move into right relationship with the idea, we cast aside doubts, we cast aside worries, we just go for it. Then we're living from that place of passion. And it makes us feel alive. It makes us feel engaged. It makes us feel like we're the one with this thing we desire. See, all we teach is there's oneness. There's not two-ness. Until our minds go there and we make it the other, right? But our fundamental teaching says it's all one. It's all part of a divine intelligence, wisdom, love, harmony, joy. And so our jobs as spiritual beings, as conscious beings, is to awaken to what is possible and to bring that forth, to listen to these divine promptings, to speak the word of truth, to move into the place of action from this passionate place of being. And so passion, enthusiasm allows us to engage deeply. I was reminded of a story this week, and I love this story. It came to me through my friend Reverend Sally, who quoted Dr. Grayson, who's written a wonderful book called The 10 Demandments of Prosperity. there's a series for us one of these days, the 10 Demandments, not the commandments, the demandments. Like you got to think different. You got to demand. But in this book, he makes reference to a wonderful woman, and her name is Mary. So Mary, I lost the rest of her name. Where'd she go? Anyways, Mary McLeod Bethune. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, Mary Bethune was born in 1885, shortly after Civil War. A black woman in Florida. So, in case you haven't read your history books recently, because we ended the Civil War did not mean everything changed right away. Just in case you hadn't read carefully. So here was a woman born as a black woman in Florida of rather humble circumstances who had an idea. And her idea was this. I love this. It said, she was consumed with an idea. The idea that everyone is a spark of divine intelligence. That everyone has that spark of the divine within them. And so despite being uneducated herself, she wanted to create an educational opportunity for herself and those in her small southern community. It did not matter that at the time women, especially African American women, were not expected to become educated. So she allowed her enthusiasm and her passion for this idea, despite the circumstances, beside all that was going on, to fuel her. So here's what she did in the great tradition of Charlotte Stark. Or maybe you follow Charlotte in her tradition. And that is, she knew how to bake a mean sweet potato pie. Yes, if you've ever had Charlotte's sweet potato pie, little slice of heaven, I'm just saying. So she took what she had. I want you to hear this. She took what she had. You see, what we often do is say, I have this brilliant idea, and if I only had the money, if I only had the time, if I only had a better spouse, if I only had whatever it is, whatever our story is, then I could live from this. She didn't. She said, what do I have? And she apparently had sweet potatoes available and made pies and went door to door selling them. Over a little bit of time, she raised some money. She moved through this idea and she raised $1.50. Cash money, hard hold cash money, you got it, right? Now, of course, 1885, I'm guessing $1.50 went a lot further, but it wasn't still a lot of money, right? And that was enough for her to begin this project. And so she opened the Daytona Educational Industrial Training School for Negro Girls with 5 students. Over the years, the school grew and eventually became the Bethune-Cookman College, and today is known as the Bethune-Cookman University. She also went on through this career to be appointed as a national advisor to FDR. She was known as the First Lady of the Struggle because of her commitment to bettering African Americans. Now think about this story for a moment. Think about your story for a moment, right? And are we taking the resources that we have and our God-given gifts and saying, how do I utilize those? How do I bring those forward? How do I create a greater possibility? Or do we allow ourselves to say, well, if circumstances were just different, then I'd really do something. I'm inspired by the life of people who, no matter what's going on, say, I'm going to live with this, I'm going to be infused and enthused with this idea and bring it into being. What do I need to do? In case you're wondering why I have 3 tomatoes with me, it's a new, I'll bring it, I bring it all, baby, No. At the earlier service, I was speaking about this divine spark that we all have. And I saw my friend Farrell sitting over there and that little glow of love that surrounds him. Now, besides being one of our newly licensed practitioners, an amazing teacher and an amazing man, he is one, can I say this in church, badass gardener. No, I can't. Linda tells me I can't. Take that back. Please delete that from the record. And so one of the things that I got to experience in being in practitioner training with him for 2 years is every time about this year, here's Farrell with his bounty of good. And so even as I was speaking, he got up, he went to the car, I was talking about the idea, and now I have manifested homegrown tomatoes, and I am not sharing, just so you know. So sometimes it comes to us as if by magic. And sometimes we allow ourselves as metaphysicians to think everything comes to us as if by magic. So my magic, though, you should know, was a whole lot of hard work on his part. Right? Don't ever forget this. So you may be the gardener at some point, and sometimes we're the recipient of the garden. It's all good. It's all reaping and sowing, but be aware that sometimes we've got to go into action. So I was listening to a wonderful speaker, Dr. Dane here. He talks about tools of consciousness, and he, very much one of us. And I happened to catch a video of his, and he was talking about this idea of manifestation. And I know we're all into manifestation. We know in this room that ideas do take form. That ideas, a seed like a tomato seed, can be planted, can be cultivated, can be nurtured, and then, given all those right environments, an abundance springs forth that is so amazing. This is what Jesus was speaking to us about when he talked about the mustard seed. This is what he was talking about, is when life matches the divine intelligence and the idea, and it's planted and cultivated and nurtured, then when it comes big. That's true. We see this with people, and we see that they've manifested or brought forth a greater life, and we like to say silly things like, oh, they're an overnight success. An overnight sensation. Like all they did was get off the truck, and like Camille, it all just came, right? Finally, she gets to finally sing at the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. Carnegie Hall, I know, will be a bit of a step down, but we bless you nonetheless, right? Right? It's doing the things necessary. So I love this idea about what is it we need to do. Because sometimes what we do is we see people experience good. And we, rather than celebrate that, have some kind of internal talk that says, that's not possible for me. Or they're lucky. Or I wish I could, right? Or even at lower levels of consciousness, we are resentful and we call them filthy rich people or some other derogatory term, right? And he's saying, rather than that negative self-talk, what if we were to just make the demand? Rather than say, I can't have it within our own mind, why not change the question to, what would it take for me to create that? See, here's what I love. Ernest Holmes, in his philosophy, which is based very much, Science of Mind is very much based on the teachings of Jesus, said to us that if it is possible for one, it must be possible for all. And that's why we often say we don't see Jesus as the great exception to who we are, but as the great example of possibility. That greater works than these you may also do. Maybe what he was speaking to. So if we can see that one has created, we know that the possibility is there. So how do we get there? Well, now we need to ask some new questions. Instead of making the statement that I can't have it, we say, it is possible. What would it take for me to have? And then what is it going to take for me to manifest this? What is it going to take for me to create this? Now, what I realize, I could grow my own tomatoes. Don't know why I would when I know Farrell, but nonetheless, right? It is possible. This is not a unique skill that only he has in the world. But I would have to go about doing some of the things that he does, which involve getting your nails dirty. And so I need to look good for you. I just feel like it's my responsibility, right? So what is it going to take for me to create this? How can I change that story? You see, in that version of idea manifestation of my setting the goal and accomplishing it versus my setting the goal and not accomplishing it, the difference is, do I move into right relationship with it, and do I start asking the right questions, and then do I start embodying that as mine? And then move forward because it's mine. Right? How good is that? So what do I need to do? And then to get a sense of it. This is where our vision and our creative capacity comes in, is when we set a goal for ourselves, then we start to live inside of it. We start to generate enthusiasm for it. We are one with it. What we seeks us. And when we're moving into right relationship, we're allowing ourselves to sense and to feel and to know and to experience how that feels and what it'll look like. And we can put some pictures on our boards and we can write our affirmations as if it's already an accomplished fact. And then we want to ask ourselves this question: what do I need to do differently? Now, I have some hard news for you. You know I love you, right? That your life today is a reflection of your thought and your actions. That looking in the mirror, you're going to get a wonderful song about that. Right? Now, no judgment here. It's just the way it is. That what we think about, what we do, how we show up for life determines the experience of life that we're getting to have. And if we want a different experience of life, perhaps, I'm just going to suggest this, perhaps we want to try and do some things differently. Think differently, feel differently, image differently, ask new questions, do different actions. If I wanted to be a master gardener like my friend Farrell, it would benefit me greatly, I'm sure, to go into the garden. To dig around with worms and all the other things that lived there and do the things that gardeners do. You see, that's why I find this teaching, we overcomplicate it. It's so simple. That we want to think differently, we want to image differently, we want to act differently as the person who accomplishes such things would act. We can learn and grow into that. So what do I need to do differently? And then, what action can I take to create this? Now, here's the thing. Most of us never get the full plan. We get a divine idea, we have our current reality, and we have the thing we say we want, and we're like, I don't know the 10 things. If I knew the 10 things, I'd probably already have done those 10 things, right? But we can ask ourselves, what's the next right action? One of them is, get started. Stop talking about it. 45 years is enough. I'm just going to suggest, right? And if you start, then the next action reveals itself, and the next action reveals itself, and the next right and appropriate step. And so then we begin a process of moving ourselves toward the goal because it's ours, right? This is mine. And so I'm going to bring it into being. I'm going to do it with joy. I'm going to do it with enthusiasm. I'm going to know that this infinite and divine presence as Ernest Holmes loves to say, delights in its self-expression. I love that. If you think about this universal cosmic thing that is happening, is the divine is delighting itself all of the time by all of the ways it gets to create and manifest itself into being. If it enjoys going from being a seed into being a full-blown tomato, Jesus said to us, how much more does this presence love you? To have its expression of itself, its experience of itself through us. In theos, enthusiasm, allowing that these divine promptings are calling us to be in our greater self. And yes, we may have to do some things differently. I know I always say that, people are great about, I want a different life. I just don't want to have to change. I can tell you that approach does not work. I've been waiting for you guys to change for a very long time, and it's not working. But I can change. And when I change, all things change with me. I was sharing earlier that how blessed I am, because my life, most of my life, I get to hang out with varying degrees of conscious people. I'm going to say on a 1 to 10, 5s and ups, okay? Most of my life. Right? We get to be in spiritual community saying, you're a divine being. How can we support each other in realizing and making that real in the world and making it manifest? And I get to teach classes that teach these principles, and I get to have meaningful, deep conversations to love and pray with people as they're moving through the challenges of life. And I get to be in spiritual community so much of the time, and every once in a while I forget that there's a real world out there. And then when I go out into the real world, I hear conversations that make me just want to grab people by the lapels and shake them. When I'm hearing people saying, me, and I can't have, and I can't be, and I can't, I'm like, ugh. I don't. I want you to know it's taken me about 20 years of ministry not to do that, but I just hear it and I think, I just want to say, don't you know who you are? Don't you know that you are a divine expression of this one life that delights in its self-expression? Jesus said to us, it is the Father's, it is this divine power's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. It will bring you tomatoes, not only to your door, but to your Sunday morning service. He said it's a refreshing for the first time to have tomatoes delivered to me on stage instead of being thrown at me on stage. It's good. It's a whole new experience for me. Right? You may spend more time in the real world. So that's where we need our vigilance. That's why we need spiritual community. That's why we need spiritual practice. Because the ways of the world are telling us it ain't so. Right? And I'm just going to suggest to you, you can believe that. And if you believe that, you can have that experience. Or you can believe, as our friend Mary Bethune believed, that I have a passion and an idea and I will do what I need to do to bring it into being. It's amazing to me. There's a university sitting in Daytona, Florida, teaching and enhancing and empowering people from a little idea that a woman believed in passionately, so passionately she'd sell some pies and raise $1.50. Part of why I love this country. It is our culture. Make it happen. Make it so. Bring it forward. So I don't know what great idea is living on your heart right now. I just want to be here to say, thrive. Be thankful. Be happy. Be inspired. Be resilient. Throw a little vivaciousness into that and be enthused. And take action from that state of being the type of action that brings those results into being. What I find over and over and over is that when I move in consciousness towards my goal, towards my vision comes rushing back to me. That which you seek is seeking you. When it's divinely inspired and we're taking right action. So just know that wherever you are on this journey, that you are loved, that you are supported, that we are here as a spiritual community to love and support each other in realizing more and more our true and divine potential. Let us begin with prayer, if you'll join me. As we turn inward, honoring and acknowledging this one life, this one divine intelligence, this infinite being, this intelligence which has caused all the galaxies, that has brought into being these planets that remain in balance and motion, that causes the rains to fall, that causes the tomatoes to grow. This same divine intelligence is the one and only life, and therefore each one of us is some part of it. As I recognize this truth, I simply speak this word of truth and power, for I know that it is the one life spoken through my word that brings forth a greater reality. And so I'm simply recognizing the truth of what is, that this power is always in harmony and in wholeness. And as we recognize that I am wholeness, we call forth health, well-being, vitality. As we recognize that this one presence, this one power is divine love, that we are one with that divine love, we allow our lives to be healed and transformed. We release fear. We let go of otherness. And we move into the oneness of unconditional love and possibility. We are reminded in this moment that we are abundant beings, because we are co-creative and co-generative with the one life that creates all. We recognize and know that we are abundant beings right here, and we allow our greater good to be revealed. Joyously we give, and graciously we receive of this divine bounty. How good it is to know this truth. How good it is to bear witness to that which is seeking its revelation through us. This day we allow that divine idea that has been living in our heart to become more real. We begin to say yes to it. And we know even in the saying yes, the universe is saying yes to us. I am calling forth this presence, recognizing that we are blessed beings right now, experiencing grace and gratitude. And so it is with that sense of blessing that we extend a blessing. We bless this community, each and every one of us gathered here, and those who are a part of the community that are not here today. For we are a divine idea, revealing greater light, greater truth, greater love in a world that sometimes appears to be dark. We extend a blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet. We're recognizing the brotherhood and sisterhood of all humanity. We're holding that high vigil, that high watch, that high possibility for a planet at peace, for a world that works for all. And as always, we bless all priests, rabbis, ministers, teachers of every faith. We are knowing that there are many pathways to the divine, and we are honoring, celebrating them all. Oneness reveals itself in many forms, in many ways, and we call it good. And so it is with joy and gratitude that I'm simply having an inner realization, grateful that the word that we speak, the consciousness that we hold, brings itself forward into form. So I know there's nothing more to do but to release this word into that divine law that knows what to do, how to do it for the highest good of all concerned. In joy and gratitude, then, I simply say, thank you, God. and allow it to be so. As together we say, and so it is.